Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Blacksmith Furnace with me, Robert.
With me, Pete.
Man like Mo, no, the flyest one in the furnace.
We are back again.
Yeah,
A bunch of delusional people. Robert thinks he's half of the furnace.
Flyest
Mo
one,
thinks
the
he's the
flyest
flyest.
one, obviously.
I'm not half the
Obviously.
furnace. I'm the best
sorry.
half.
Yeah, the best
Furnace.
half. Fair
That's
enough.
right.
Cool. Because your delusion is in the superlative. Cool. Appreciate it.
Peter's just trying to be the humble one, which he's not, but it's
He's
cool.
not. He's
I am
not
the
doing
humble
very
one.
well.
I'm so humble.
I'm the humblest. What are you talking about?
You went from the best half to the humblest.
Yeah, I could be the
Well
best
done.
and the humblest.
Part of what
Well
makes
done.
him the best, isn't it? It's part of what makes him the best.
Yeah.
His
Anyways.
humility.
Cool. All right.
Welcome, people.
Facts.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. I'll do something a bit different today for Sorry Not Sorry.
Ooh, we're switching it up.
Yeah, just a little bit.
This is where if I had the roadcaster, I'll do
So I think Mo was in the hot seat last week, wasn't he?
Yeah,
That he
yeah.
was.
Well, I'm going to put you in the hot seat again this week, Moses.
Stress.
Okay. Why?
Just because I've been thinking about some stuff and I thought we haven't had a chance to talk, so I thought it might be nice if we deliberated over the hot seat.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
I'm intrigued now.
Yeah, so last weekend Moses was away in Birmingham giving a talk to some children about God.
Exposed.
Yes.
And so the first question would be, Moses, how was that experience for you? What did you learn? What did you learn about yourself as a talker? What did you learn about yourself as a Christian? And yeah, let's go with that.
Hey, my teeth look mad white in this, Come on. Jeez.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah. You should don't edit that part out, yeah? I just said man's the flyest, yeah? See it, man's smiling even more now. So firstly, what did I learn about myself? So I learned that
Oh no. First tell us how you found the experience. And
How'd I
then
find
go
it?
into what you learned.
you know that experience was very different.
Okay, also, but before you talk about your experience, tell people what you did.
Yeah. So firstly, is my sound coming across like well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So I was invited to a church's national youth conference to lead a session on hearing the voice of God. And yeah, it was good. So I get there, and the lady who invited me, as soon as she saw me, so I get there late. I get there like 8 o'clock on the first day. Everyone else has been there. They've had lunch. They've had dinner, everything. They've settled into their rooms. I get there late, and it doesn't start till Saturday, so it's not late. But I'm one of the last people to arrive. And the lady who invited me, I locate her, and she's just like, "Yo, your session's sold out. It's like oversubscribed. They had a limit of 60. No, it's got nothing to do with me because them lot didn't even know me. They didn't know who Mo was.
But they knew me,
It
and that
was
was
a topic
enough.
that they were interested in.
It was a topic that they were interested in. So the limit was 60, but I had 70 signups for hearing the voice of God. And I was like, yo, like,
That's good.
talk about pressure. But it's good. So I started to meet some of the young people, just kind of seeing them floating about and stuff. And I think I realized that the demographic that I had in mind was totally different from the demographic that was there.
Okay.
So I had in mind kids who were like already in faith, about the faith, putting in work. But no, like this is a typical youth group, and I don't know why I thought it wouldn't be. It's a typical youth group which has a wide range of young people, a broad spectrum of young people, and it's secondary school age. So literally from 11, 12, secondary school lightly is like up until college age. So from like 11, 12 all the way up to 18.
Right.
And so again, the spectrum was really wide. Speaking to Gems, and Gems was just telling me stuff that she felt God was saying to her, which was having an impact on what I was going to do on a Saturday. So I was like, oh, okay. And my session was at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. How I found the experience itself. No, what I learned was, so I had the framework of what I was going to do. So a rough gist was I was kind of taking the kids through the entire Bible from Old Testament through to New, and exploring how people heard from God. Really wanting to explore the diversity in which people heard from God, to help them understand that it isn't just an audible hearing. Some people may not hear him audibly at all. It may be a sense, it may be a feeling, it may be almost like hearing their own thoughts, but knowing it's not them, kind of a thing. Knowing it's not themselves. If for some, it may be more visual, pictorial, visions, colors, senses, smells. For some, it may be through community, someone who says something or whatever, and teasing out stuff like kings had prophets, kings sought the priests to hear from God and stuff like that. And so there were external people, and even community, like forming communities of people who are actively seeking God's face together. And so you're all kind of going in the same direction. And then just going through stories and stuff. But I wanted to ground it in something. And that's what I spent the Friday night, Saturday morning. I spent time with God finalizing. And it was very much just around Jesus being the good shepherd and us being the sheep, and him saying, my sheep hear my voice. And trying to understand what that means for us. What does it mean for Jesus to be our shepherd? What does it mean for us to be a sheep? Exploring that, but also looking at just what they understood about salvation and what that means in terms of our relationship with God. So yeah, tease that out. So on the Saturday itself, I realized that I had been trying to run that whole session like by my own strength, and I was able to surrender it to God, and I realized that I've got a bunch of youth leaders with me, and so God was like, he has given me a community to work with, and so I need to tap into that community. So I was able to do that, thankfully. Spoke to a few of the leaders, and I was like, I may be calling on you guys to kind of help me through this. Don't worry, I won't throw you in the deep end. I'll kind of cue you up and stuff. So that was really helpful, having the community there with me, the community of leaders there with me, recognizing again, like God has gifted me these leaders in like leading this workshop about how to hear from him. So yeah, the workshop itself went really well. I think this was one of the first workshops that I have done that I have come out from and saying and thinking, I think that went really well. But still being like, that's what I think. The young people may say differently. But on the last day when we were getting feedback, all the young people in my group said they really enjoyed it. So yeah, we teased it out. Thankfully, the young people like warmed up. They started sharing their stories. They felt comfortable enough to ask questions. Some people, one girl asked about, she was open and vulnerable, and was like, she revealed her frustration around other people coming to her and saying, God said this. And she's like, but why can't God say it to me himself? Why is he going through somebody else? And just teasing out that there may be multiple different reasons. Some people have dedicated a lot more time to hearing God than you have, and so are able to kind of get messages not just for themselves but for other people. And that's why it's very important for us to test the spirit. If someone is like, like God said this, you need to test the spirit to ensure that it aligns with God's word, it aligns with who God has revealed himself to be. But also it aligns with almost like God's character, who he has revealed himself to be, and how he has revealed his will for us in the Bible. So yeah, testing the spirit. if you want God to speak to you more directly, then you need to invest in cultivating a space where you can hear from him more frequently. And I was also like, the reality is some people say God said when God hasn't said it. And so there is the element of people lie about hearing from God, which then makes testing the spirit even more of a point to make. Where it's like, yo, some people lie, so ensure that you are testing the spirit. And then just kind of giving them I gave them 2 principles. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And so when you hear from God, ensure that you're actually doing it and you're not just getting gassed that you're hearing from God, or you're not trying to do what you think you should be doing and not what God has told you to do. And secondly, I told them to trust more in God's ability to talk to them than their ability to hear him. So that then shifts it from works to grace. And then I gave them 4 practical things to do in order to cultivate hearing from God. So I was like, first one is if you want to be serious, if you're serious about hearing from God, then you need to be serious about his word. That's the primary place to hear from God. So be serious about his word. You don't need to be a theologian, but you need to be in his word. You need to be very intentional about like taking in his word and meditating on it. I told them to pray, but not just have a monologue, but actually dialogue, like leave space and room, intentional, like actual space to hear back from God. And to journal every time that they think they've heard from God. It then gives them a record of the times that they haven't. They should be able to start identifying patterns, stuff like that. But also it almost gives them a means of ticking off things that happen that they believe God has said to them, which then reaffirms this notion of I am hearing from God. And lastly, I was like, get yourself into a community that is actively seeking God's face. Not just in church, but your friendship circles actively seeking God's face, who are trying to hear God's voice. So those were like the 4 practicalities rooted in those 2 principles, which all derived from John 10, which is the Good Shepherd. So yeah, I think it went really well. And I believe that God's been speaking to me about just my capacity to lead and to invest into people being much greater than I had anticipated. Because it's almost like it's not necessarily the safest thing to do, but it's almost like beta testing where you do it in a small batch to see if it works, and then you start rolling it out much bigger. And God was like, yo, like step into my beta testing is almost a much bigger field than I had initially anticipated. When I was like, I'll just run it with like 2-3 people, see if it works. God is like, no, like your first session was with 70.
When it should only be with 60. Jeez.
Bro. And it's like your first session was with 70. This is your beta test. And it was in a national youth conference. So yeah, that was interesting to do that. And the vibe was totally different. Everybody else who were running sessions had slides, had everything, fam. I was like, I ain't got no slides. I ain't got nothing. All I got is a couple scribbles on my iPad. We're going to sit here and tell stories about God.
Typical Moses.
Come on. So yeah, like they gave me the main. I had so many young people that they gave me the main stage. Everybody else had little side rooms, but it was like there's too many. You can't hold them in side rooms, so you've got the main stage. And I still picked up a chair and sat down in the middle of the young people and spoke to them. And that is typical Moses. I'm not about standing in front pulpit. I don't even want to stand up too tough. You know, I don't even want to stand up. Just sit here and let's have a conversation. So yeah, that was really good. We shared stories about hearing from God and different things. Yeah, and then some of them shared stories about hearing from God, and thankfully I was able to like again link it to the Bible and say I can know that this is something that God would do or God will say, because there's been these instances in the Bible where something like that has happened. um yeah, so that was super helpful. And again, reiterating the point of know your word. If you want to hear from God, know your word. So you can really test the spirit and see if this is how God has worked historically. God is able to do something new, as in like the handkerchief with Paul, but at the same time, everything that he does is rooted in his character as he's revealed in the Bible.
Yeah.
So that expression may be new, but the character is not new. Yeah, he doesn't cast a shifting shadow. So yeah, like it was really good. And I had a few conversations afterwards, people trying to get me to do things in their churches. The lady who invited me was like, yo, this is not the last time, right? I was like, yo, like, yeah, let's chop it up, let's do this.
Come on.
So yeah, it's good. It's
Nice.
good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did they all have the Brummie accent?
No, so the church that was running it, because it's national, they've got people from like Bristol, Liverpool, Birmingham, all over the gaff. So their
Oh,
accents were just all over the place. All over the
crikey.
place. And you had the typical thing of Mandem trying to draw gyal. We actually on the last day we had 3 fire alarms go off. And they went off at like after midnight. So everyone is vexed because everyone's trying to sleep. But before the fire alarms went off, as the leaders, we went checking the rooms, and one room had a very heavy smell of weed.
Come on.
And we were like, right. So it's like
Trying
one
to
of the
get with the most high. Come on.
like that. One of the leaders was walking down, smelled something, and it was like, Mo, come, just smell it. Please tell me I'm not smelling what I think it is. Bro, I walked beside the door. I was like, yeah. It's what you think it is, fam. They open the door and it hits you. It hits you. So yeah, that was unfortunate. But again, it's like when I was in the youth group, I would have known the mandem who would do that. So it isn't.
You would have been the madam doing that.
bro.
Stress.
I would have been. I would have been close to their dorm. I'll tell you that much.
No.
Even if I wasn't doing it, I would have been close to the dorm.
That's always annoying, though. That's always like a bit of a
Yeah.
damper on things, but
Yeah, and it's like legit. Like guys were actually chatting up girls. They were doing these things, and again, it was interesting because we had obviously these young people. Over the weekend was super hot. The place was by a lake, and so like the scenery was beautiful, and you had these teenagers in like biker shorts and legging shorts and stuff. And I was like, this is not a good combination. This is not a good combination. A good weekend with essentially horny boys and little girls. And the girls are dressed. I was just like, yeah, this is not a good combination. And I was sitting like the Saturday morning, I was sitting down writing my notes, talking to God, and these 2 girls came sat on my bench. They were like, oh, can we sit? I was like, yeah. Fam, they walked up to the bench, was like, oh, excuse me, sir. I was like, yo, I ain't been called sir in such a long time. It's mad. Then they asked if we can sit. I was like, yeah, cool, sit. And then these guys came out who were hench, but they were only wearing a vest. And then they walked out, and the girl started being like, oh, the Lord is my strength. I am content in the Lord.
hey, at least he's trying.
Bro, at least she's trying. At least they're trying. And it really made me mindful of the double standards within church in general, where when a girl wears something skimpy, we're like, nah, go cover up. But man, them can walk around in vests. I'm like, at least you're not topless. And I'm like, the standards are off because these girls are still lusting.
Yeah.
Like they're still looking at man.
Yeah.
I don't. Well, well done to you, bro. We're very proud of you. May this be the beginning of something beautiful.
Amen.
Something beautiful, unlike your t-shirt.
No, them shots there, unnecessary.
Always hating for no reason. No, the reason is because you're inferior, and you feel inferior, and so you need to boast.
It's compensate. Okay, compensate.
Yeah. That was nice.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. So that was a sorry.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's get into the topic for today.
Yeah, cool.
I don't even know how I want to start this. I do. So, I think it was last week. I read a very interesting statistic. I was like, oh, let me find it quickly. So, for the first, hold on, let me see. Let me get right. Let me read it quick properly. Hold on, let me see. There it is. Okay, so in the UK, for the first time since records began in 1845, in the year 2021, more children were born to unmarried parents than to married parents.
I heard this on the radio.
I heard that as well, yeah.
And I was like, yo!
Yeah.
And then it just got me thinking, is it the world that we're living in now? Like, all right, it was only 51.3%. And some people might make the argument that maybe some people were going to get married, but COVID got things in the way or whatever. But it's crazy that the scale is tipping to the way of the heathen like that.
Way of the heathen,
Oh. So I just wanted to ask you guys' thoughts on that. Like, are you surprised? Like, what do you think this means for us as a society?
Do you know what? I feel like I've been really thinking about this recently because I have just found out news very similar about someone that I know, a young person that I know. And firstly, I can't even get mad because I am part of that statistic with my first child. So I can't get mad. It would be very hypocritical of me to do so. And I was like, I'm not even mad at the situation. I'm not even disappointed. I'm just sad. Because I recognize the realities of it, and I recognize that for the most part, the main person that suffers is the kid. Regardless of however the parents' relationship goes, the relationship could be beautiful. If you are not together in terms of living in the same household or whatever, raising the child together, there are things that the child is going to miss out on just by virtue of you not being together. If you're unmarried but living together, then that's a different situation. Because then practically it's almost like a married household without the written notice of being married and stuff. But for the most part, it's function.
I don't know, I feel like that is dangerous in a different way. Like at least looking at it from a Christian lens.
Okay, from a Christian lens, yeah.
Yeah, in the sense that like the child isn't seeing what a relationship should culminate in.
Mm-hmm. From a Christian perspective, I agree, but from a worldly perspective, I don't. And when I speak now, I'm very much speaking from just a general. So I'm not necessarily saying I would never encourage a Christian to live together with their partner if they're unmarried, predominantly because of the temptation to have sex, which then leads into a whole bunch of different stuff. But also just to be like, yo, like take the steps, let's go through this, let's like commit to this relationship and stuff. But in terms of just from a general perspective, I'm just like, yeah, some unmarried couples' relationships are more healthy and wholesome than the married counterpart. And so I'm not necessarily going to say, oh yeah, like you need to be married. Nah, like the person who's going to suffer the most if the relationship splits is the child. Like there's a situation that comes to my mind. There's a little boy that I know that goes to my son's nursery. When my son started a nursery, this boy was so happy. He'll see my son, they'll start laughing, yeah, but like, and they're only two, but banter is there, like they're just playing. Now, for like the past term, the boy, his whole demeanor has just changed. He's a lot more recluse. He's a lot more just gripping onto his mum, crying, not wanting to leave and stuff. And there was a time that I was dropping off Noah, and the boy ran round the car park, and obviously the nursing manager's like in a panic now because he's like, yo, it's a car park, there's cars, this and that. So the nursing manager like worker runs to go get the boy. So I say to the boy's mama, boom, like, your boy's trying to run away. Your boy doesn't want to leave you. And she's like, yeah, like he's really touchy at the moment, and he keeps telling her to fix the relationship with his dad. And I'm like, so firstly, I'm like, I didn't need to know this information. I really didn't. I don't know. This is a bit too much. I didn't really need to know this.
She's been needing someone to talk to.
Bro, she's been needing someone.
Yeah.
And then after she says that, she follows it up with, I did sort it. That's why we're not together anymore. And I'm like, yo. I'm like, yo. But right there and then, I realized that even at the age of 2/3, the separation of this boy's parents has had such an impact on him that the happy boy that I knew when my son first started nursery is no longer there. Well, he's there, but there's a lot of trauma that has now impacted him, that he's not operating in the same way. And I'm like, this is 2 years old, 2/3.
Yeah.
And now there's a real, it's not even a possibility, there's a reality that there are more and more children being born into situations like this. And again, secularly speaking, a marriage is not a fail-safe against the relationship splitting up. And even faith is not a fail-safe against the marriage splitting up. It's not. There have been pastors who have had divorces. There have been like men who call themselves generals, but like that's not a fail-safe. It's your commitment to the marriage and your partner's commitment to the marriage, that being surrendered to God, that is the fail-safe. That even when all the bad things hit, there's a phrase that I want to use, but I'm not going to use it because of the nature of the podcast. But even when the doo-doo hits the fan, I'll use that version. You guys are still committed to each other and surrendered onto God. That is a fail-safe. As soon as one person checks out, the marriage can't last. As soon as one person becomes complacent, the marriage can't last unless there's like these strategic prayers that goes in to draw this person's heart back into it and stuff.
Yeah.
But one person cannot sustain a marriage by themselves, regardless of how strong they are, regardless of how much of a prayer warrior they are. And I say this having seen relationships that are going through a madness because one person has unknowingly checked out. And again, I'm not trying to put them on blast. But in terms, I'm saying that marriage is not a fail-safe against divorce, and not being married is not a fail-safe against is not a sure thing that you guys are going to split up. But biblically speaking, the Bible has presented something, has presented a path that God has ordained and God has intended, and like biblically speaking, this isn't a democracy. We don't get to say, "Oh God, but I think this should run." Nah, God's word runs. And if we call ourselves sons of God, of God, then we need to follow the Father's rules, and that is marriage, then children, and like marriage is till death do us part. So it's not a case of did I marry the right person? No, make it work. Unless this person is thumping you up and them things there, then we can take him behind the corner and thump him up, fix him up, and then. But yeah, it's a case of I'm waffling because I'm not necessarily waffling. There's a lot, but I'm realizing that I have spoken a lot, and I want to hear you guys' thoughts.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I did hear that statistic on Premier Gospel. I think on Sunday or one of the days after that on the radio, and I think it's interesting because in secular society, marriage is more so I don't want to say a political thing, but it's more. It's not the institution of marriage that is holy matrimony. It's not what God necessarily designed. It's more an economic thing or a contractual thing in the eyes of the law of the land. And so that the number of births and stuff are shifting in that direction in the country in general isn't surprising because those sorts of traditional values that mimicked Christian values, I think, are rapidly eroding. Where it used to be that society, at least in the UK and in America as well, but this is pertaining to the UK. It seemed like general society sort of mimicked more Christian society, especially as UK a Christian country, if you will. Yeah. But that's quickly eroding. And so I'm not surprised at that statistic at all. I think it's there are current statistics that show, kids born into such families end up, as Mo said, having, just statistically in general, kids born into sort of marriage, not born out of wedlock, end up suffering a little bit more, and having loads of different things going on with them because, understandably, because God designed marriage for the nurturing of kids and for the nurturing of a family unit. And so anything outside of that, I'm not surprised. If you look at it with a wide enough lens, you notice it's detrimental, because if it wasn't detrimental, God wouldn't do it as such. God wouldn't preside marriage as such. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at this statistic at all. And it's I think it's I want to say par for the course. It's what's going to happen anyway. The more and more secular the world becomes, the more secular the UK becomes, because it's definitely not a Christian country in those times.
Yeah, I feel like the world is becoming more and more about the individual as opposed to the collective.
I mean, to the extent of redefining reality according to the individual's lens. Yeah.
And with it's just so like men historically have never been the best at making an honest woman out of women that they are having children with, and now that there's this women's revolution going on as well, this women independency is what going on as well. I don't think that's helping either. And there's this, I've been seeing this weird train of thought going on that women are happy to be single mothers.
Yeah.
Partly because you know they were raised by a single mom and they turned out all right. You know, there's questions around that. But yeah, that but then on the other side you have like this whole red pill community that are not even see women as they should be seen, and it just seems like both genders aren't seeing the other for what they should.
Yeah.
It's either they're seeing them as the enemy or they're seeing them as a resource, but they're not seeing them as equals and partners to go on life journey with. At least not in the way that they should.
Yeah. Again, I think it's interesting that Christianity and actually, I guess, the Judaic religions, um, I say Judaic Abrahamic religions, so Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, all base the male and female relationship on submission, on respect, but outside of who's providing what, if that makes sense. And it clearly says, okay, man, you're to be the priest of the household. Woman, you're to be the nurturer of the household. And it's like, however it works out, that's the framework that's given, such that there is a leader, there is a, there's a structure to it. And I think what's happened is where in secular society, they don't hold themselves to that standard. What you had was an evolution. When it was, we were hunter-gatherers or whatever, the male, by virtue of being male, was the one that would go and hunt or be the protector or be whatever, in a quite literal sense. And the woman would be the nurturer in quite a literal sense. But we've come through to a point now where you're not even needing that per se. You're not needing like a physical protector per se. Of course you do in the certain circumstances, but not in the same way as they did in the 1900s, for instance, or the 1800s. And so I think as a result of that, you've got a movement that's then saying, well, I don't need you for those same things. Why should I still cling to that traditional structure? The problem is that traditional structure was useful, and where you're abandoning that and going for something else, you have to be happy to be a single mom because that's what you're going to be, sort of thing. Because there's no need for commitment, and sex is no longer a sacred thing. Sex is a handshake, a more intimate handshake with whoever you find attractive on the day. And so it's like you have to be. And then you've got the red pill, and they're like, yeah, we still want to cling to those things, and we still want to be alphas or whatever in a world where you now have female alphas, and you have to make them submit and whatnot. And so you've got a bunch of guys trying to encourage each other to be alpha when maybe, are you really, or are you just deluded? So yeah.
But doesn't even Genesis speak about the woman's desire will be after the man and stuff like that? Just speaking around, like the woman would want to not necessarily usurp, but there will be a desire to almost eradicate the need for a man and to be in that position themselves, which is an interesting thing to think on, given the circumstances. I do feel like there's the reality as well of of trauma, a reality of trauma, a reality of people having to make do, or make the most of a broken system. As propaganda, shout out my guy, said, we are trusting in a broken system to fix the brokenness in us, which is a real shame. But outside of God, that's all we have, a broken system to fix the brokenness in us. We've got the judicial system, which is like if you steal, you do X, blah blah blah. But now that system is malleable in that. Yeah, you stole, but you're hungry and that, so we're gonna. Or you stole, but you're white, so you can go free. You know the ones that. Yeah, that was an unnecessary shot, but yeah, yeah, just stuff like that. And unfortunately, this is the world that we're in. This is the system that is built on the back of brokenness and fallenness. We're almost just trying to, yeah, just build a world.
Hey, Moses, what's going on?
Can you not hear all of that?
All of that.
Unboxing situation going on.
Yeah. Man's doing the MKBHD situation. You see, man's got the iPhone, the green iPhone. Jeez. I was gonna set it running and stuff. I didn't know that I was picking it up hard. But yeah, nah, thanks for flagging that. I'll mute myself when I'm not talking. Yeah. So yeah, I've lost my train of thought, so I'll leave it there and mute myself.
Okay, maybe next question. How can the church do better in promoting the importance of having children within marriage?
That's interesting.
Yeah, let's start with that.
It's interesting because I think the problem that you're describing there is a symptom of a greater issue or an issue behind it, which is what it means to be male, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man of God, what it means to be a woman of God, and what those two then mean in a marriage. And so I think the way the church addresses it is to address those things, is to address the fact that, yes, we've evolved, even to the extent where now it's hard to have a family that's relying on one salary. Like, it's hard to do. It's not as easy to maintain that sort of traditional structure in today's society, because most families require two salaries, require for both the man and the woman to be working. However, and that's the point I was making, is the submission. So the submission of the woman and the man being called to leadership of the family in that sense isn't based on any of those things. It's not based on the man's capacity to earn. It's not based on the woman's capacity to earn. It's based on the structure that God has given, to the extent where, to use a biblical example, Abigail still submitted to her husband, who was clearly an idiot in the time of David, to the extent of getting him even saved and saving David. Now, it's a flawed example, because David then goes on to marry her, which is
Come
what
on.
I'm trying to talk about.
Come on, that's what I'm talking about.
But this is the point. And so even where we've got a requirement for two salaries, a good woman of God still submits, and a good man of God still lives up to that call of leadership. That means that submission isn't a bad thing to that man, because that man is submitted to God. And so it's still a good thing. And so I think that's what I think that's what the church needs to maybe, focus on and preach more about, as opposed to, I'm not going to throw shade on the everyday blessings and double blessings people, but I think build better men, build better women, and in doing that, I think you will build better marriages, and that will be a better place for children to be brought into. Whilst Mo takes a selfie, apparently.
Question. I don't know how I can even form this question in a way that makes sense. I'm going to try anyway. So, like, one thing I think I've noticed in churches is that there is a not significant, but there's a sizable amount of like single mothers who maybe have never been married or maybe things didn't work out. Do you think that the church should be helping to find such people potential partners and husbands and stuff, or do you think that they should just be left to look after their children?
I don't know if the church's role should be matchmaker at any point. I don't think that's what the church is for.
If not the church, then who, Peter? Who?
I've heard
Me?
stories.
You?
I've heard stories.
Here's the thing. The church, I think, should be building better men and women. And so in doing so, are you making better men available to, the single mothers that are in the church? But I think when that becomes the focus, then you have like weird events and stuff that is just like, I saw one event, was it? No ring, no ding, no ringy, no dingy.
Bro.
On the flyer.
Bro. My sister was at that church.
Oh, do you recognize that?
My sister was at that church.
Yeah, I saw the flyer. I was like,
at least they're trying.
She is no longer in the faith.
yes. Well, yeah, I saw that flyer and I thought,
and that's where I stopped. That's where I stopped that story.
Yeah.
She was in that church. She's no longer in the faith. The last I heard, she's calling herself Alajia, which is Islamic.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. I think because all of those things end up, marriage, of course, is important and it's a good thing, and if someone's coming in, single moms, and everyone's coming in with needs, single ladies, single moms, single men. But I think it's dangerous to have that as the focus. Like the focus is, let's get people into heaven. Let's get people into the body of Christ and let's glorify God, which is what the body of Christ is supposed to do. But I think as a consequence of doing that right, you end up creating better quality men, better quality women, and those can then be potential partners for whoever.
I agree. I agree tentatively. Because I agree that the emphasis should be seek first the kingdom of God. Everything else will be added on to you. That should be the emphasis. And if we build godly men and godly women, then arguably, when people do get together, at least characteristically, they've got the right ingredients to form something healthy because they are men and women after God's own heart. And so they are then able to form relationships which will be built upon biblical principles, upon who God is, who He's called us to be, stuff like that. Now, there may be personality traits and stuff that may not sit well. And that's where personal preference is going to come into play. I don't like this person's personality. I like this person's personality, or even not this person physicality. I don't find this person as attractive as this person, or whatever. So those things come into play. So I do think. So yes, I'm in more agreement now, having said that out loud, that yes, let's build godly women and men, and
because that's a problem that they'll experience anywhere, everywhere.
Yeah.
But then I might make the argument that building godly people doesn't necessarily build godly marriages.
Consequently, it should.
No, because I think what I mean is in the sense that you can be about God and great, but not know what it means to be a married person.
Fair enough. And I guess what I should say is the focus isn't let's get this people married, or let's get this single mom or the single lady or the single man married. That's not the focus. The focus is building godly men. But the church still administers marriage. The church still officiates these marriages. And in doing that, I think the church should, have like marriage counseling and prep and all of those things, which contribute to a healthier marriage. And so it's not that the church is not responsible or should not be doing any of those things, but I think my response was more so, and maybe this is more so again also my sort of Pentecostal African thing. It's like, well, the church shouldn't be playing matchmaker and say, oh, this person's daughter is here, that person's daughter is, or that person's son is here, they should get married, sort of thing, which can be very annoying.
Yeah. I for the most part, I see, especially within the Old Testament, a lot of matchmaking happening, and for the most part, it seemed
at
to
the
have
well.
worked.
At the well.
Yeah. I mean, Abraham getting his servant to put his hand under his thigh. Interesting thing is, apparently, the putting of hand under the thigh, it was actually the servant putting their hands on the testicles, and the person saying, yeah, and the person saying like, yo, like I am in a vulnerable state, like, can I trust you even in this vulnerable state?
Yeah.
Because I was always like, why? Well, stop doing that. You're weird. I was like, why is it under my thigh? But if it's actually the testicles, then that makes sense, because there is a great sense of vulnerability. Yeah, there's a great sense of vulnerability, and it's like, yo, like I'm really trusting you. I'm almost like I'm trusting my life, my very livelihood, my posterity, whatever. Posterity, that's it. But I would still push back on, even if building, I would push back on building godly men, not building good husbands, or building godly women, not building good wives. Because
so how do you mean? Yeah,
I would push. So Robert was saying, just because you build godly men doesn't mean they're going to be good husbands. Yes, that is true. Just because you're the greatest man doesn't mean you're going to be the best husband.
Not greatest man, godly man, because part of being a godly man is being a good husband.
Yeah,
not necessarily.
Not what I was going to say.
If the Bible describes marriage as it does, yeah. Or
what I was going to say
not
was
necessarily the best, not necessarily you are the best husband, but it should be part of the thing that you're aspiring to as a godly man, which isn't necessarily the same for a secular man.
What I was going to say was, in loving your wife as Christ loves the church, fundamentally what you're called to do is serve.
Yeah.
Fundamentally what you're called to do is serve and to lay down your life for her.
Yeah.
That should be the mark of a godly man.
Yeah. And
one who serves.
Sorry to interrupt, but in addition to that, that's something that I think is only possible for a godly man, because it's not possible. It's not easy at all, and requires the Holy Spirit, which is something that only a godly man will have.
Now, in terms of the practicalities of walking it out, yes, I agree the church would have to hold him accountable. There would need to be, and when I say church, I don't mean the institution, I mean like the people around him who form the church would have to hold him accountable, would have to be like, yo, like, on a practical tip, it's your anniversary, like your wife's here talking about you ain't done nothing. Well, go on for that. It's like, boy, you should have been stacking up the pennies. Like, even if you're broke, you could have cooked a meal. You could have done something creative. If you needed help, holler the man them. Like, we got you, whatever. And that's a random example. Not that I don't think anyone's anniversary is coming up, so that wasn't a shot.
Mine is.
Oh, stress. But it's a case of the church will hold you accountable and ensure that you're walking in the direction that you have committed to. But that won't just be in marriage. That will be in general. Along your walk in general. So I believe that in raising godly men and women, your godliness should slot into every area of your life.
Yeah.
From work to recreation to leisure to marriage. to fatherhood, to like you being a son to your parents. It should seep into every area of your life. Now we can and should hold you accountable in terms of the practicalities, but it's the characteristics that the church is seeking to build that will then flow. It's like out of you will flow rivers of living water. It needs to be like in you, and then it flows out. And yeah. So I would push back from that perspective, because in building godly character, it should flow out into everything that you do, including marriage.
How's that pushing back? That sounds in agreement.
With Robert.
Oh, I'll push back on Robert. Mm.
Yeah, I was pushing back on what Robert said in terms of not carrying over. Yeah, so I'm agreeing.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There are secular men that make good husbands. There are people that don't believe that make good husbands or even good partners. Like I think of my older brother, who I actually look up to in a lot of ways, and he's not even married to his wife, but they've been together longer than I've been alive. And they keep it working, and they're still engaged actually. 4 kids in, well, 3 kids and one other kid in, and he's a great example of a dad, a great example of a partner in many ways. So I'm not saying that you can't have that outside of sort of a religious group. What I am saying is you should have that in religious groups. Like godly men should be good husbands, and men that are Christians should be godly men. Whether or not that is the case is maybe is actually should be in spite, or not in spite. Well, the word I'm looking, that's a failing of the church, but the church should be designed to do that. Yes. It has been designed to do that. Yeah.
But I do see space, not like prescriptive, but potential, provisional, where churches could hold singles events.
Oh no, they can. No, absolutely they can. Sorry,
so stuff like that, like a singles event or whatever. So it isn't a case of come and collect your wife, but like
come to the well.
Come to the well.
Confined.
There's singles here. Invite your single friends who are Christians or whatever. Like just come through, and just allow them to mingle. So it isn't a case
it used to be. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I keep interrupting you. Sorry.
I was gonna waffle. I was gonna waffle. So it's a good thing you
fair
came.
Enough. I was going to say it used to be the stereotype that once you're done playing, you're going to look for a wife in the church. Once your whole phase is over, you're going to look for a husband in the church. That used to be the stereotype, because unfortunately, again,
the stereotype has flipped, boy.
The failing of the church these days sometimes has been them Christian guys are worse. Some of the Christian girls, they'd be worse. But again, this is the prayer before
I came to faith. The stereotype was, if you want a freak, go to the church.
Them pent up ones, the daddy issues.
No, like that.
All right, guys, chill.
They might break your back.
Relax.
The prayer for the church is that we end up raising godly men and women. And
I really can't believe Robert was the voice of reason, and we were very reckless.
It just goes to show in this group, I'm the godly man. You can learn a thing or two from me. Don't worry.
Red man Rob, you know.
What can I say?
And I think the call is to us, to everyone listening, to everyone that's part of the church, to be part of the reason why that stereotypes gets flipped over again, and we do have godly men, because we're called to keep one another accountable. We're called to be examples, to call each other out on such things. The saying "only God can judge me" isn't biblical. We're called to judge one another in church, to call each other out and things. We can't call out secular people, but in church we believe in the Bible. We believe in that standard. We're supposed to do that, and I think in us contributing to doing that, we're playing our small part in making the church what it's supposed to be. So, yeah.
Cool. All right, I think that'll be a nice place to round up. Because we've hit the hour mark.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Hookups,
Hookups. Can I go first?
you can.
So my hookup is a new series on Netflix. Now, full disclosure, I haven't actually watched this yet, but I added it to my wish list as soon as I saw the trailer. It's Tekken Bloodlines. It's an animated series. I think
Is it
only
out yet?
6
Is it out?
episodes. It's out. It's out. It's out today
I
or
know I'm going to
yesterday.
be what. Hey, do you know what? I
Yeah.
just finished Shaman King, and I was like, "What am I going to watch next?" Now
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, the animation looks nice. It looks good. I know
Yeah.
these 6 episodes, so
The storyline is
check it out.
beautiful.
Tekken
Storyline
has
is
always had a really
beautiful.
good storyline. It's always had a really good storyline. So yeah. Check out Tekken Bloodline on Netflix, and that's my hookup.
All right, I'll jump in next. So my one is for anyone who's trying to like do home workouts and stuff like that. Get yourself some kettlebells.
Yeah.
There's no links for it. There's no nothing. Just get yourself some kettlebells. It's convenient in terms of space. You can get heavy weights and it's not taking up the whole room, and it's so versatile. So versatile. I switched up my workout today. It has messed up my back. Like I'm not sure if you guys know of side swings.
Yeah. Those are nice.
So I started doing side swings today, bro. So I'm doing snatch, deadlifts, bent over rows, and then I slipped in side swings. My lower back is finished. Side swings, and it engages the entire core with the abdomen. I mean, with the obliques. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And literally, I've only got like 3 kettlebells, but it's a full body workout. My body is finished, and it's like 14 and 10 kg kettlebells. So it's nothing super, like I'm not trying to be Arnold or anything like that, but it's super on a lower weight. It's super affordable, and you can just get in the workouts and stuff. So yeah, my hookup is kettlebells. Get yourself some kettlebells if you're trying to be about the home workout life. Yeah.
Cool. So my hookup is a movie, but before I give it, don't go and watch Nope. That film is a waste of time.
Nope.
No.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sure.
Has Jordan Peele reached saturation?
I think he tried a bit too hard with this.
Oh, snap.
Maybe it was just me, but it just felt like the film never got going, and then it ended.
But that's not particularly the director's fault, but the screenwriters need to take some blame for that as well.
Well, he was the screenwriter. He was the writer.
Yeah, he writes and directs, doesn't he? He writes and directs.
Well, yeah, I tried to get him some grace in that, but if you're the screenwriter as well, then that's a madness for you.
Maybe I'm wrong, but it just felt like that film. You like waiting for it to start, and
did you like Get Out?
Get Out was alright. I liked Us. Us was good.
Okay.
I haven't seen Us, but yeah. So what is your film recommendation then? Because you said I'm gonna start by saying don't watch nothing.
I just to say don't waste your money on it. If you get the tickets free, cool. You want to waste 2 hours, cool. But don't spend money on it.
Or if you want to go through other channels to watch it.
Yeah. Time, keep it quiet.
I
would fully recommend pirating this film.
Stress. Damn.
Hey, that's a godly character right there. That's
I know.
A godly
of
man.
the best of the fairnest. This is the advice he comes out with.
Okay. Sorry.
As a godly character.
Hold on.
Yes.
Okay.
Pirates.
As a godly man, pirate the film, but then repent. That's that grace right there, amen.
Kind of Lucifer spirit.
Anyway, so the film I'm hooking up is also in the theaters right now. It's called Where the Crawdads Sing.
Where the who? What?
Where the Crawdads Sing. I think a crawdad is like kind of bird or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about
Oh,
this girl.
yeah.
It's about this girl who lives in a marsh and she's on trial for murdering some guy that she was doing a thing with. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's good.
It sounds heavy.
I was about to say something, but I realized that we're being recorded, so yeah, I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah, it was heavy, but it was good. It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
I think it was originally a novel that got turned into a play, not watch a film, but yeah, it was really good. Really good. But yeah, cool. Shout out to intro out to music, Cover 20 for the Audrey Amaze logo, Twitter
on.
at the Furnace UK, Instagram TBS Furnace, email tbsfurnace@hotmail.com. You can find us at soundcloud.com/Blacksmith Furnace, not apostrophe. On all the podcast websites, apps, that's Furnace with the apostrophe, and that's it. So this is the Blacksmith Furnace signing out.
Blah.